Hello, my name is Marley Francois, and I am going to be talking about the great educational thinker Lev Vygotsky. A little background on Vygotsky is he was born in 1896 in Russia. Being a Jew in Russia at this time, the Vygotsky family was considered outsiders. There were limits to how many Jewish students could be formally educated. They actually exercised a 3% quota. And oddly enough, Vygotsky was chosen and was able to be one of those Jewish students to be able to be educated, thankfully for us. He earned his law degree from Moscow University in 1917. He spent 9 years at the Moscow Institute of Experimental Psychology. He became interested here and did research in the field of child development, educational philosophy. He wrote about 10 books, nearly 300 scientific articles, and many, many lectures and manuscripts. He died at a very young age of 37, and he wasn't widely known until around 1953. He actually gained popularity here in the United States in the 1980s and 1990s. And this was due to his theory being an alternative to Piaget's cognitive development theory. Piaget felt and emphasized in his cognitive development that cognitive development was based on internal influences, while Vygotsky focused on external influences such as social interaction. Vygotsky was sometimes known as the Mozart of philosophy. And Lev Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development, when you do some research, actually comes up under a few different names. Some of those names are the sociocultural theory or the cultural historical theory of cognitive development, the sociocultural perspective, the social interaction theory of cognitive development, or the co-constructivism theory. Now, Vygotsky believed that social interaction is a major factor that leads to cognitive development in children. The basis of this theory is that a developing child needs social interaction to develop skills in reasoning, memory, attention, and in language. A quote that he is known for is every function in the child's culture development appears twice, first on the social level and later on the individual level. First between people and then inside the child. What he was saying here is that there is a link or a connection between communication and internal thought. Vygotsky believed that there was a process of social interaction which led to cognitive development. This process is first seen. You see what is happening. And then there is the jointly doing. This is where the learner and the teacher is doing this process together. And then finally, the student is independently doing, or the child is independently able to do the activity. One of Vygotsky's guiding principles that differs from other theories is that children, and well, all humans, experience continuous development and learning, not stages. He believed that it begins at birth and it continues until death. I agree with this. I believe we should be continual learners, and this happens all the way up until death, but I believe that there are a little bit more to it than just that. He also believed that learning is possible before development, and he believed that there was a collaborative process between two people or groups, hence the name social interaction. Now, back to the process of this social interaction, a great example would be like a dance instructor. The first thing that a dance instructor does to her students is she shows them what she wants them to learn. They see what the steps are. The next area is they are jointly doing it. She does it with the students. She walks them step through steps. They do that together, which will eventually lead to that third stage of where their students are able to independently do the dance. Vygotsky believed that infants are born with elementary mental functions, or EMFs, like attention, sensation, perception, and memory. He believed that these EMFs turn to higher mental functions such as independent thinking and learning through social interaction. A few important ideas of Vygotsky's work are one of them is more knowledgeable other, or an MKO. Now, an MKO is simply someone with a higher ability than the learner. An MKO can depart knowledge that leads to cognitive development in the learner or a child or an infant. This MKO does not necessarily have to be an adult. An MKO can be an older child. A great example of this is with social media or video games today. If you want to learn how to play the newest video game or post something on Instagram, that MKO would probably be better to go to a teenager rather than maybe your grandmother as that MKO. The MKO can provide behavioral or verbal instructions which will lead to collaborative dialogue. This dialogue will lead to cognitive development. The next thing I want to talk about is the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD. This is the area between independent performance, or what you do know, and the assisted performance of what you do not know. This area in between what you know and what you do not know is what we as educators need to focus on, and that should be our focus in the classroom. A common example of this with maybe a young child is a jigsaw puzzle or possibly a shape ball that a lot of children get at their first birthday, and that's just the ball with all the little shapes inside it. That child doesn't understands that those pieces that come out of it need to go back into it, but they have not been able to put together that the heart needs to go inside the heart shape, or the square needs to go inside the square shape. So we are able to take that area of what they do not know, show them, do this together, the social interaction during that ZPD, which will eventually lead to the area that they do know, to where they're able to independently do it on their own. Another important focus that Vygotsky had was on language. He viewed that language was one of man's greatest tools of development, and not just communication. Up to the age of 2, the means of communication from a child to their parent or caregiver is crying. They cry when they're hungry. They cry when they want to be held. They cry when they want to be changed. This is a form of communication. Then around the age of 3, they start speaking to themselves. This is the beginning of starting to learn. Through this research for this, I've actually paid close attention to kids at this age, and they repeat things repetitively. They'll say no, or good, this cookie is good, and what this is doing is leading to that next stage of instead of speaking it out loud, it's the internal thought process. So these are all the important factors that go through the development through language. Play was another important focus of Vygotsky. He felt that through play, children are able to strengthen themselves cognitively. We see this as little children play house. They want to be the mommy and the daddy. I see it a lot at school where children want to be the teacher. This is all using what they have learned and being able to go further with that. There are a few criticisms, just like with any other theorist, against the Vygotsky approach, and one of them is some say that the zone of proximal development does not account for the precise learning or needs of a child, and that it's going to differ, and that this zone does not explain the process of what is actually taking place or how the learning or development is happening. Another criticism is to his theory is that they say that the social interaction theory can't apply to all social groups the same way. And I do agree with this. You have a family that maybe the mom is a stay-at-home mom, and they are of a higher socioeconomic class, and they're able to read to their child every day, and they're able to have that one-on-one playtime, that one-on-one interaction. They are going to cognitively develop faster and at a greater speed than maybe one that comes from a lower social economic class and are not able to spend the time with the parents as the other child. So I do agree with this. However, I agree also with a great deal of what Vygotsky says. I do believe that we are continuously learning. However, my own personal opinion is that I do believe we do go through stages. You can see this in schools, and as a teacher, I see the different stages of learning every day in my classroom. So I do feel that is important. I've enjoyed this presentation. I've enjoyed this research. I've learned a lot about Vygotsky as well as other theorists through this research, and I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.